Hey guys, Kid here of Burn 1, the Shadowverse Evolved channel, joined with my co-host.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
All right, his
It's your
name's
boy
Dean.
Dean.
Yeah, yeah, there we
I'm
go.
here every time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's probably gonna be new peoples because tier list videos always get so many people outside of the people who subscribe to us. And if you're
Right.
here for this tier list video and you're not subscribed to us, you should subscribe to us because we release these like probably every 3 months. I assume we're gonna release it like 1 to 2 times every set release, right? So
Maybe like one time in the middle once the metas actually happens and like maybe like a predictor before.
yeah, something like that. Yeah, like right before it comes out, this is what we think, and then in the middle, this is where it's settled at. So if you haven't seen our first video, we did a prediction tier list of what our thoughts was, what the meta was going to shape up to be, and this is kind of how we broke it down: tier 1, tier 1.5, tier 2, and tier 3. I guess Dean, what do you think we kind of hit it on the nail, or do you think we kind of screwed up here?
I don't even know what some of these pictures were, to be honest. Like the Roach thing, I think I slightly undervalued Roach, but I don't think Roach is a deck by itself. It's a card in the deck.
Yeah, I think during it you said it was like OTK Roach basically because that was just a common archetype that was being thrown around in the beginning.
Yeah, people were calling it that, but I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I still think like either way, these are at least. Was there any other ones you think we screwed up on?
Awkward one is what Abyss is too high and like Sword might be
Too low. Yeah, I think like, everything else we kind of.
I told you, Flaming Glass is real.
Oh, I also think mid-range Sword also is like at the same level of aggro Sword. It just depends on what your local meta looks like. At least that's what I feel like. So I think overall we kind of hit it for the most part. And yeah, for people who didn't watch the first video, Flame, was it Glass and Flame or Flame and Glass or whatever? This is the type of deck archetype where it's either going to be amazing or it's going to be garbage depending what shell you have it around during what craft it is.
I told you it was real in Dragon.
Yeah, it's pretty real in Dragon. Like, I don't know if it's the best version of Dragon, but it's a very strong contender for the archetype. I've seen some people started playing it in Haven for like a longer game like that. I'm not totally convinced in Haven it's like very strong, but it's good. It's just like a good archetype to consider. But we're gonna be doing a new tier list for like kind of like our mid-season thing. We're like halfway through, or how has it been out for like a month and a half now or so?
Yeah, about that.
Yeah. Right? So we're gonna do an updated tier list, but instead of doing a boring tier list like this, we decided we're going to do kind of like this alignment chart here. So what is this? Is this the y-axis? I don't even remember anymore, right? The vertical one is y and x is easy to hard. So yes. Yeah. So we'll be kind of telling you how like this should like communicate more information when you just glance at it instead of just like what the other tier lists look like. So in this case, we'll start off with something easy here. I think we'll both agree on like how we'll place it is I think we all know Dragoncraft in general is very strong, and it's pretty easy to play. I want to say it's like one of the easiest decks to play that is very strong. So it'd probably be like somewhere up here. You think, Dean?
Probably around there. I think it's I don't know. I do feel like it's all based around like playing. Yeah, I guess you just put it there.
Yeah, because I think that's because I don't think there's any single deck in this format that is busted. I think actually the entire meta is fairly balanced overall. There's a couple decks and stuff or archetypes that are probably kind of way weaker than some of the other ones, but they can still compete. But yeah, hopefully like this type of chart helps you guys like, you know, absorb more information on like how we rate it and stuff like that. So like at least I'll explain my reasoning why I think Dragon's super strong. You're probably going to agree. I think Shinto also made a comment like this, and I kind of agree with him too when I read one of his blogs that he recently posted since the English release came out in his area as well. Like one of the strongest things about Dragon is this is the same I feel like after like playing Dragon so much is that Dragon could be very strong because it is, I feel like it's the most versatile deck because it's very easy to alter a deck to your local meta if you know exactly what's going on to like counter most things in your local meta. Because the deck can either play like more aggressive, more control, more slower, more faster, depending on what you want to do, and you can move cards around in the list without really hurting the strength of the list. Just changing like what portion of the game you're going to be like more aggressive or stronger at playing. Do you kind of agree with that?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, I think that's like the key takeaway for Dragon of what makes it very strong. Also, like Forte is really good, and also people have to be afraid of Genesis Dragon every time. Like, oh, I'm at 10 HP, I could just die. Like, is always
Genesis Dragon's pretty good. Forte is also very good. Still, I don't know. I still say that there are turns that's like sometimes a little difficult to thread her in. I don't know if you agree with that or not.
there
That
are
was always my assessment with her.
yeah there are times where it's like an
But
awkward, you know, if you had to find like thread the needle perfectly, and she's like does so much work.
on the flip side,
Mhm.
she does just steal games. So yeah, like Forte is very strong. A lot of very strong cards in Dragon.
Mhm.
They're able to grind it out if they need to.
Shenlong being the best card in Dragon, I think, by like a landslide. That's what I feel like. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So I think since we got this easy one out of the way, you guys kind of understand how it's going to work. We'll go from here, I guess. We'll kind of keep to the same archetypes we had before unless need to be. So before we had this as like OTK Roach. I don't know if we want to kind of change what that means exactly. What are you thinking?
Combo Forest versus Fairy Beatdown, I guess.
I think so. Yeah. That would make sense. Um, okay, so I don't like playing Forest that much. So
Oh, same. Put it in hard and unknown.
hard and unknown down here in the week.
I don't think it's weak.
It
No,
isn't,
I've had
yeah.
like people.
Like I've lost to Forest at locals and stuff because one, I wasn't fully understanding what all their tools are, but also it's still kind of like really strong, especially you get caught with your pants down basically with not having a response to like a random roach evo and like hit you for like 5 or 6 or something like that, right?
I had Forest sleeved up to try next week. I haven't tried it yet. So I really don't know where we're gonna put this one. I know in the hard, if it's combo,
Hmm.
it's the ones like all the puzzle pieces. It's probably like the hardest deck to play.
You think so?
We're gonna do extremes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah, because the sequencing is very important with the deck, right? So it's definitely going to be around this range. But how strong do we think it is actually? It's
unless you want to put Phoenix Roost as the hardest because it takes the most mental fortitude. But
yeah.
I do feel like it's quite strong. Like probably not like high, but like maybe like a little bit lower. Like not weak. Like yeah, like there.
We'll kind of put it
maybe.
here like the middle of the pack. I think like once you get past this line, you're like pretty good. Once you get dropped below, you're getting pretty weak value for a deck, right?
Cards, yeah, cards like Rose Queen
Mhm.
and then like the Roach being able to seal out the game, plus like the pressure from the Archer
Yeah.
Evo. You have like a pretty decent matchup spread. It's not like the best, but it's not bad.
Yeah. I kind of feel that way too with most decks, honestly. So I think I can agree with like this being around here. Anything else worth adding for this?
Not really.
All right. I guess Forest players in the comments below, like, let us know your thoughts too, because like Dean and I both kind of put Forest at the end of our testing
So
classes. Yeah.
these pictures are kind of bad.
Yeah.
This one, if we're saying this is like the fairy beatdown,
I think I think this is fairy beat down with Rose Queen, where you're like mostly like using fairies to like generate value that way until you get to the point where you get a combo off with Rose Queen to burn.
Maybe I don't have the right list, but like terrible things happen with this deck. Like actually terrible things happen with this deck.
Like
Uh,
terrorist level, or what do you mean?
you remember last night where my hand was triple altered fate and the deck, yeah, like it's like hands like that. I don't know. Are you supposed to play Titania Sanctuary? I think you are. I think without it, you don't have a deck, and you're supposed to see it early. But like sometimes you don't. But sometimes you see two of it,
Yeah.
and then like you can't do anything with it.
Hmm.
So there's like really, I think the nature of the deck leads to a lot of like really awkward hands,
Yeah.
and it feels like I think the way I explained it to someone was because they were asking about the deck archetypes, and I don't want people playing Forest because I can't play Forest, so I don't know how to help them.
Yeah.
The my statement is that your deck is like 22-piece puzzles, and you need the puzzles together in your hand, or else you don't do anything. Because it's like you need the fairy circle first before your like elf dancer works, and then like you need the titanias before your fairies work. Even without the elf dancer, you'd like what like, or with the elf dancer plus fairies, like your fairies still like sometimes are not good enough. So you need the sanctuary out. It's like, what? How many pieces do you need before you feel like you have a real deck? Is like kind of my question.
Yeah, I totally understand it. Like, this kind of goes for all four. It's like you need to get that early archer out and everything like that. If you get those pieces together, you can start controlling the game a bit and get to the point where Rose Queen can get you the win, right? That's kind of what you're saying.
I mean, like
Yeah.
once that happens, it's fine, but it's, I don't know. I always feel really awkward playing it, especially the forest, like the fairy variant, because I just feel like at times I either have like fairy generators or I have like buff cards, and sometimes I don't have both, and then I'm like, why am I playing this deck?
Yeah, understandable there. So personally, this is what I think of like how strong it is. I think it's a little bit stronger than like this creature centric version of the deck, I guess. I feel like it's probably like around here, maybe. Because
Okay.
I think when the pieces fall in line, the deck has insane burst and like potential, but it at the same time, like you said, like the pieces need to fall into place before you get there.
I probably also have the wrong list. This is like the thing is like I need to like actually find a good list or make a good list.
Yeah, I
So
think
it's
most of the
hard for me to
lists,
talk
yeah,
about.
most of the lists I've seen have revolved very heavily around Rose Queen and Fairies. Not and Roach was kind of just there to supplement. Like I need this as removal more than like closing out games, right? And like
Right.
basically that's all they did: generate fairies until like got to the point where they can just like start burning you down, and like any extra little swing they can get in, it was like helping them like get you into the range to burn you to death essentially on turn 8. Because a lot of games I feel like I've seen people like Rose Queen 8 get the play points back and then they end the game right then, or they get so close that like next turn they can just burn you already with what's on board, right? Yeah. That's what I feel like. You think you're okay with like putting it right here, like just right above?
Oh yeah, that's probably close.
All right, sick.
Like I said, I just don't have a list, and I don't really know where to get one at the moment.
Yeah. All right. We had Otohime here representing mid-range sword. So like I said earlier, I think we it was Aggro Sword is the one we severely undervalued. So this is the deck I play the most now, I feel like. I think
It's powerful.
Yeah, I think it's one of the stronger decks to be playing, depending on your meta. And I think
like right below Dragon on both ends.
Yeah, I think the deck is. I want to say the deck is a little like harder to play than Dragon, but it's not too much harder.
What does your deck look like?
Well, it's probably.
I mean, my list. My list is perfect curve. It's like I play one tutor and my hand will be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I have literally no other thoughts. I am playing a card down of the curve, and that's the only card that's playable in my hand.
I mean, you're not wrong in a way, but I think one of the things that changes like the skill a little bit in Sword is that you have the decision making of what you're searching out and when you're searching out.
I put down my tutor on 3, and I have a 5, 6, and a 7 drop, so I search the 4 drop. I'm not even joking. That's
I know you're not joking because that's how you're supposed to play the deck. But I do feel like when it comes to mid-range sword, there's some decision making, especially later in the game, that you make because you have to set up turns prior sometimes to know what your next turn is going to look like. Whereas I feel like a dragon, I could sit there and drool and just be like, "What's the biggest thing in my hand? Play that," you know.
There is a little bit of thought.
It's definitely like down
but it's like
this
really
range.
Close.
Yeah.
And you say mid range, but like, dude, I'm still on 3 Novice Trooper. I'm still on. I don't know.
The problem is Novice Trooper is just too good of a card at the end of the day.
Yeah. So like you're on like 3 Alwitas, 3 Novice Troopers, 3 Quick Bladers.
Yep.
it doesn't matter. You're still like you have like all of the benefits of aggro, but you just get to play less cards, which means you have more hand.
Yeah. I
So
I think it's like probably like right here. It's like pretty easy
yeah,
to play, and I think it's like just under dragon, right? I
it
think it.
feels very strong.
Yeah, and like this is why
Your
I
only
always
bad
tell
matchup.
what.
Your only bad matchup is the Flaming Glass card because you cannot out it.
Yeah, it's true. But from playing this, it feels like it has a okay matchup into dragon, and depending on the dragon build, it could be a favorable matchup. I think like Swordcraft in general, either build is like the second. I don't want to say the most common deck, but it's definitely the second most powerful deck. I feel like that people are playing because of how easy it is and how cheap it is to actually buy. Because it's also one when people ask me like when they're first learning the game, like what deck should I get that's easy to learn or whatever. I always tell them Sword. It's so straightforward. You kind of learn all the interactions of the game, and it's very cheap to build for the most part. You don't need like 3 copies of Tahime and stuff like that, so you can kind of get away with playing less of the expensive cards. Like you don't really have to play
True.
Lucifer. You don't really have to play Bell Ringers if you don't want to. So
I do want to say I was correct though. Banner is ass. I want you to know you can say long games, short games, like whatever. Every single time I've put Banner on the board on turn 4 has literally cost me the game.
yeah, I've almost never played Banner on 4 unless my opponent is like literally bricking to death, and they like didn't clear my Floor Fencer on my turn 3 Evo with Evo point, and I'm like turn 4, I'm like, oh, you didn't clear
And
this. All right,
thus Banner is not a good card. I do not understand putting a card in my deck that I have to combo with other cards.
Yeah, I very much
That is
value.
unsearchable like that.
Yeah, I value Sage Commander a little bit more. Like some turns, I will search out Sage Commander with
Wingard is real.
Wingard. I actually finally played against someone who was playing Wingard against me when I think we played a Sword Mirror.
God.
And I could see the potential of how scary that card can be. It just, unlike Banner, it doesn't impact the board immediately. You get like +1 somewhere, and that's it. But usually that might be actually enough also, because a lot of times when you're playing Sword, people are just wiping your board over and over again. And then you do something like Quick Blader or Novice Trooper into Wind God, give it +1, swing in, then give +1 to everything. Those are like very common lines I've seen. But yeah. All right. Aggro Sword. I think we super undervalued this one, actually.
Ooh, I don't think so.
You don't think so? You think it's the worst aggro? I think it's the best aggro deck.
What's different between it and mid range? Oh, it's the same as mid range.
I think it's the power line is about the same. Like maybe aggro is a little weaker because I think more people will like they play Bell Ringers. They play for like early game denial. I mean, I even see some Haven players play like the 1/3 Snake Priestess. Like it's come up more than like one player. I've seen it like multiple people have playing it as like a cheap ward to like just slam out sometimes.
Well, I guess my question is, what are the cards difference between mid range and aggro that makes aggro? So I feel like you're already playing every Stormfollower. You're already playing like
the big differences, at least for me, is like in the aggro version of Sword, you're playing things like to bounce cards back to your opponent's hand, like Erd. You don't generally play Erd in mid range. You can. I think it's an okay card to be playing in mid range. You play more like Shadowed Assassins that are like big bodies that also remove and like 2-for-1 things like that. We on the Sword, you play a lot more of the 1-drop 2/2s, whereas like mid range, I cut like almost all the 1-drop 2/2s. Like all my 1-drops are basically like Quick Blader and
Made. That's it.
Made, yeah. Though that's it. Alwida's Command is a optional card in mid range. I think it's still a very good card to play in mid range because it's just good value in Storm immediately. But for sure on the aggro deck, you max out that every time because that card is very good in that.
That card's good regardless.
I think the card is good regardless.
These are like the same deck. These are the same deck, but you put more like bad cards in your deck with the aggro variant. Is the only thing I'm thinking of.
Yeah, sorta. But also, I feel like in the mid range deck we play like Irelia. Is that her name? The 5-drop.
The card that can win you the game on the spot.
I almost never see people play that in the aggro deck.
No, you don't, and that's why I think it's just a worse deck.
Yeah. Okay, I think we're in agreement then. So I feel like it's kind of like down here. Maybe it's even lower than this, but it's probably like down here, right?
Well, I would go lower than Forest.
You think lower than
It's like
Forest?
it's the kind of deck that if you breathe on, because your deck is filled with the aggro variant specifically, where people are playing like 12 1-drops. They're on like the swordsman.
Mhm.
They're on like all these ninja trainee garbage. That is the variant that runs out of hand the fastest, and I don't think it has the reach to even end the game with like what it does.
Okay. So are you thinking like kind of right here? I feel like I don't know if it's even lower than that.
Well, we gotta have stuff in the weak category, and
Oh,
I
I mean, they're
legitimately
okay.
I don't know what strength you see from that deck. The variant that's playing like the 1/1s
Hmm.
and
I
are
think
maxing out on all these
it
aggressive cards.
it might just be that Dragon players in my local are being really greedy and playing late versions of Dragon where they want to start winning on like 10 plus play points, whereas like they get aggroed out by the aggro sword sometimes because they either open too slow and
I mean,
like
yeah, if you build the bad dragon deck, that's
I guess yeah. Okay. Maybe you're convincing me. Like down here, I still think
yeah.
it's relatively strong. Like if I brought this to a locals, I mean, I did bring one of these to a locals and won it, right? So
Was it normal sword or aggro? Like, was
aggro
it
sword,
mid range?
it was all aggro. It was all in on just killing my opponent almost as soon as possible. Like maybe I could have played luminous knight or whatever instead of like the 2-drop 3/3, but I valued the 3 health on the 2-drop 3/3 way more.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Because like yeah, a
I
lot
don't
of
know.
people just like play random
Maybe I'm
clearing.
wrong. I always felt like that one was bad, but if it's better, you can move it up.
I feel like it's probably we'll just peek it up here a little bit, just a little tiny bit.
There we go.
I think it's a pretty good aggro deck. I think I might.
Nothing goes nothing goes in the middle. Everything is either like super easy or like impossible to play.
Okay, that's not true. I think D shift. We're moving on D shift here. I think this
Bottom,
deck.
bottom, middle.
Wait, you think it's super easy to play D shift?
No, bottom.
Oh, you think weak?
That deck is unplayable.
I don't know if it's unplayable. I think it is the weaker version of Rune for sure. I think it's like down. It's probably like down here. I think it's like down here.
Oh my god, there's so much chart, and there's no way the D shift is in the middle when you literally can't tutor your win con, and you have to play keep away for 9 turns. And Dragon can literally say you lose the game because you don't play any heals. And they
Okay.
just triple forte you 3 turns in a row as you die.
Okay. You're convincing me more.
Yeah, D shift is pretty bad.
All right. If you're in an aggro meta though, I feel like you just win with D shift every
When you put it,
time.
you move it a little bit to the right over hard.
Like over
It is
here.
not easy. I don't know. You got to be able to like sequence. I've seen people fuck up the
I've
sequencing.
seen people
So
screw up sequencing also too.
move more to the right.
More to the
More to
right.
the right.
All right.
Yeah.
Here,
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Now move it down.
Even lower.
There we
Okay.
go. I like it.
Okay. All right. All right, Dean. Oh, this is what you want, right?
Hell yeah! Right there. No, it's not that hard.
It probably isn't that hard. It's probably like here. I feel like the deck is probably fairly easy to play, right? It's
Yeah.
I think it's
You
probably
go
as good
second
as
every time.
yeah.
You Ancient Alchemist on 3 if you think they don't have removal. Like if they're like dragon and you think they're playing like a greedy list and they don't have removal, you can just Ancient Alchemist on 3 and then kill them on 4. It's like
Yeah.
It's like actually unbelievable how good the deck is.
Dude, every time they drop Ancient Alchemist on 3, I'm like, oh my god, I'm so glad I have removal in my hand right now for that thing. Because when they get greedy and think they can just like slide it in and like evolve it next turn.
And I've honestly just been playing the deck that I posted. I think that Merlin is kind of a mistake. I think that if I want to put anything in the deck, I want to put in a Gilgamesh.
Oh, for the storm damage?
It's just like an out of hand late game option that like can push damage, because the only problem is that while you have a lot of good generation and a lot of early game aggro, you only play 5. I guess you play 8 bombs total, but you don't really have a way to get to them, and you run out of draw eventually.
Yeah.
So eventually you start finding those like your hand is good, And then if they live through like your 2 bombs that you'll see in an average game, sometimes you'll see 3. If you see 3, you like think it's like an auto win, but if you only see like 2, sometimes it becomes like really rough and you're just sitting there drawing the mid-range pieces for the rest of the game while you're unable to close. So it's like maybe like a 1 of Gilgamesh or something. The only thing I would change.
Okay.
But no, I've found that this deck, the health lines are really gross. The amount of wards you generate are like almost as good as Haven. But unlike Haven, which tries to just like win through attrition, you're actually killing your opponent while doing so. And also, Price of Magic is also good. It's a banish a card with 4 or less health, so you also have decent removal options. All around a good deck.
Yeah. And one thing I noticed playing against D-Shift, or not D-Shift, Dirt a lot more, because more people at locals picked it up. Because every time I see it, I'm like, yeah, I think people are sleeping on Dirt, because like I played it against, when you played it against me, I felt like how strong it is. It also seems like it has a very good, like, it can kind of shift from like being really aggro if the opponent is like, you see the read and they have a weak hand and you're just like summoning out these golems and just like hitting face really hard. Or if it needs to be, it's just like a bunch of guard form golems blocking your path, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the stat lines are also really gross.
Yeah, they are. Especially, I forget what spell it is, but there's one that gives, like, you summon 2 and they get +1/+1. And that's, I'm just like, oh, this is really annoying. Especially when I was playing Haven, because I was like, crap. Like, once you get out of 3 health range, I'm like annoyed even more. But yeah. Do you think it's this hard to play, or do you think it's easier? Or where do you think?
I don't know. I think the problem is I play too much Shadowverse, so I don't find anything like super hard.
I guess try to think of like from a new player's perspective who just started playing the game.
So hard. When was I new?
Like so 10 years ago.
Yeah. So long ago. I mean, you have to like definitely manage your stacks, and you have to have like matchup knowledge to try to avoid like.
I think one of the big
mulligan
things
also hurts a lot more in this deck,
and then
other ones.
What I noticed some people making mistakes in this list sometimes too is they accidentally board lock themselves.
Yeah, so that's like another thing.
Yeah,
you can move it like further over to the right. It's definitely got some like matchup knowledge, like
maybe like same as D-Shift, I guess.
Sure, I mean just put it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So here.
Holy shit! I don't know. I haven't sleeved it yet.
You're right.
Have you gone to locals with it?
I've never seen anyone play this, and
you haven't?
No.
That's insane.
Everyone,
that's actually insane. That card is 10 cents. You think somebody would sleep it up?
Yeah. Well, I haven't played enough casual games at locals. 3 Genesis. You're like every big card. 10 flaming glasses. Or I mean 3 flaming glasses.
3 flaming glasses. Yeah. None of the pieces to get it.
Yeah, why would you need the pieces? You just want the 7 storm damage.
No, wait, you need the pieces so you can bottom deck the you can put them back in your deck.
Oh, true. Big brain. I think everyone kind of agrees Phoenix Roost is just like a meme and it's bad, really bad, right?
Really bad.
Yeah, it's probably the worst
really
deck.
Bad. It's
probably easy to play too because you go to turn 5, you play Phoenix Roost, and then you lose the game. Right? That's how the game plan goes for the deck.
Well, you go to turn 4 because you ramped on 2.
Oh, sorry, yeah, turn 4 because you get that one.
Phoenix Roost, and they execution it after summoning a Lucifer.
That sounds about right. Oh my god, I don't think there's much to talk about unless for some reason someone out there has some crazy Phoenix Roost list.
You have the list.
Yeah,
I'll have the list next week. Trust.
Okay. Well, we need to see that Phoenix Roost deck profile soon. All right. All right. I feel like this is the ugly stepchild in the room or whatever. Aggro Blood.
I've been playing it quite a bit. I like it.
I think it's the ugly stepchild because either you love it or you hate it. I think go ahead. You go ahead.
Oh, the list I was playing though, it played like a more mid-rangey package. It played like Wardrobe Raider, like the 2-mana removal spell. It definitely played for like the later game instead of like the Goblin Monkey Flip, which I put on the same tier as Sword.
So what? We're just gonna name this is just gonna be the Goblin mode version. I think it's stronger than this sword because I feel like people like die
There's no
like turn
mid-range version
5.
on the list.
I mean, technically, we could make this kind of the mid-range list, even though I
That
think
has a card on it that is
that the,
unsleevable.
I know, but it is what it is. We'll just leave
That's why
this
it
here for
comes
now.
unsleeved when you buy it.
For
You don't need
for the aggro list, I think it's harder to play than the sword variant of aggro. I think there are some. There's
you
a
have to
little.
hold the dire bond for 5.
Yeah, or some weird. There's some weird scenarios where you gotta sequence like the order you play the cards matter for extra damage.
Yeah. Okay. Also, why the hell do people not just play 3 soul conversion? Have you seen lists for this where people are on like 2 copies of their draw cards, and then you if you ever sleep up with those lists, you're like, why did the person who posted this deck list not just play more draw cards
I
in their
think
aggro deck?
I think every list now I've seen plays 3 and like 1 Path to Purgatory.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think I think 3 and 1 or 2. I think Dire Bond is a lot worse than Path. But I understand Dire Bond, but maybe it's like a one of. But some people I've seen play like
I don't.
2
I think
Dire Bond.
I think Dire Bond as like isn't is the weakest of the 3. It's like I play it as like a 1 of maybe, and it's mostly there to like activate Sanguine. I think.
Yeah,
It's like a cheap way to activate Sanguine, and then yeah. I think this is a little harder than Aggro Sword. I think it is better than Aggro Sword because I think it can cheat out wins like on turn 5, depending on how nutty your hand is against certain matchups.
Just stare at your opponent, go Phantom Howl 3 turns in a row.
Yeah, and they just die. I've seen it happen. It's hilarious.
I've had it happen against me. I've like, I think the games against like aggro Abysscraft are like way scarier and like swingy than Sword. Sword, I'm like, they might hit me for like 3. This deck, I'm like, oh, they're gonna clear a ward and swing for like 5. This is disgusting. Well, the Sword variant like struggles. They put down like a novice troop, and that's all their mana. So
yeah,
or they put down Floral Fencer, which builds a board. Which if I can remove the board, then I'm fine. It's like
it's like they didn't do anything for a turn. So, I think how much stronger do we think it is than Aggro Sword though?
Oh no, I played Spell Rune into it, and it was the weakest deck I've ever seen. But otherwise, I feel like it is like definitely better than Sword.
Are you thinking like kind of around here range, or maybe a little higher? I feel like in the beginning we did overvalue it as like because in the let me see the first
tier 1, yeah,
it was definitely not tier 1, but it was very scary in the beginning. As we played a lot more, it became less of a like spook deck, I guess. How much stronger do you think? Like right here?
This is a very good way to gauge something. 1 inch up.
Hell yeah. All right. And then like what? Like a little bit harder to play than that, right? I think that's it. All right, because you basically kind of play on curve. There's some sequencing decisions you might have to make because of Sanguine, but or like what pieces to play before other pieces, just to like hold off from like having Sanguine and be able to activate your what's that one? Storm Girl.
Dark General.
Yeah, like to activate your Dark General and stuff. I know when I first started playing, I made a mistake of like I had to have 2 options to like play turn 1, and I would pick the wrong option every time. I think if you can, you hold this little wolf dude or whatever this spirit thing is.
Gambling Wraith.
Yeah,
Gambling
Wraith,
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. I know the names.
Yeah. Okay.
May not know the flavor text all the time, but
all right. A Skullfane focused Haven list.
Holy shit, that card!
I think this card is a trap, right?
Card is like. I did have one time when playing a Skullfane variant that my opponent said, "I'm at 19 health. I can ignore that," and then they died. But yeah, that's usually not how it goes. No, this card is like actually like.
This is how I put it in the Discord when someone was talking about it earlier. I was like, if you don't have Lucifers, you probably play Skullfane because you don't want to buy Lucifers because they like Lucifer essentially rotates out next set, and like it's an okay win condition, but I think it's nowhere as good as like a Lucifer as a win condition in Havencraft.
I don't play Lucifer in Haven.
I like it in Haven. It's just like you play heal 4 and look at your opponent and go like you either stop this right now and then you or 12 them essentially next turn with Lucifer.
I could easily sleeve it up, but like versus like this guy is just like bad. and it feels. See, the thing that I'm trying to like put into words is there's like an argument because like when you mill 4 cards, that's like the stats. The way of thinking about it is like you could just pretend that's the bottom 4 cards of your deck, right? Like imagine like when you mulligan,
Yeah.
and they were cards you weren't going to see anyway. But like this, I've seen this guy mill win cons. I've seen this guy like mill like heal cards. I it feels so bad. It feels so bad. I'm like, oh man, if it's like this thing where in your head you're like, okay, if I draw, what is the person who heals 5 and draws a card, right?
Oh, curate. Yeah.
Yeah, if I put if like there's like been games where you're like, if I draw curate next turn, I can heal up and then I win. Otherwise, I'm like in lethal range and I'm gonna die, right?
Hmm.
And then you're like, well, I have to put Skullfane on board this turn to apply pressure. You put down Skullfane, you mill the curate. The same thing as if curate was just like, I don't know,
On the bottom of your deck or whatever.
yeah, on the
right?
bottom of your deck.
So
but
okay, I
but
think
now all of the hope and optimism in your life is gone because Skullfane stole everything by milling 4 cards off the top of your deck.
So this is my look at it. So like, yeah, like the cards it mills shouldn't really matter because it's just like Dean said, it's like those 4 cards are on the bottom of your deck. But the biggest issue I've seen when I've run into other Haven players playing Skullfane is they play Skullfane and a lot of times it just whiffs and does nothing.
That's the other part.
Yeah, and you're just like, okay, and now you're already playing a deck that usually is like playing like a longer game anyway. And so you end up milling 4 cards of your deck, which is like gets you closer to decking out. And it like decking out is a like technical win condition that some people might see because I saw that at my shop qualifier recently. One of the Haven players beat Dragon by forcing them to deck out. So it's like something you got to be aware of. I think that's the bad part about the card is that there's no guarantee hitting. Like if you could guarantee hit an amulet every single time, I think then Skullfane's like mill isn't as bad. But it's because it just seems like it's been more likely to whiff a lot of the times, especially because like early game you're like searching out amulets out of your deck anyway. With
you don't search out that many amulets.
Wait, so. I mean, I feel like by the time I'm going to be playing Skullfane anyway, it's like I've searched out 1 to 2 every time, right? So you're just already removing odds out of your deck on top of like, I guess you're drawing a lot too with Haven and stuff. I don't know. Skullfane has, at best, I feel like Skullfane is like a random one of you can play, or if you don't want to play Lucifer at all, it's like an okay inclusion. Outside of that, I think it's like kind of like almost a trap card. Like maybe I could see maybe if a meta is like way more aggro, and then that means the deal 2 damage to the board is more relevant, right? Because then you can just like pop
7 the aggro meta.
Listen,
on 7.
Listen, sometimes you just gotta pop like a bunch of amulets for 0 to clear the board. All right.
On 7.
I don't know. I've seen some people slam it on 7 and then crack like 2 amulets for free that were already.
No, your statement was in an aggro meta, he's good at dealing with.
Listen,
bro, he's 7 mana. Themis Decree is 5.
Okay, all right, you're right. Okay,
he's wrong.
Listen, I'm trying to make Skullfane be worth it a little bit for someone out there. I don't know. The card seems like a trap to me. Where are we putting this monstrosity?
Put it
like down here. Oh, we haven't talked about this yet either. We need to do that.
To the right of D-Shift, but like it's definitely bad. D-Shift is so bad.
I don't know. I think D-Shift is better than
no.
I guess. Oh yeah, because you can still have
like you can at least set up a hand that can deal damage with Skullfane. D-Shift, you're gonna look at your opponent, put down like a Flame Destroyer, D-Shift, look at the 3 card deck you have left, and be like, there's two Flame Destroyers in there, and then they're gonna go, damn, that's rough, and then win.
Yeah, like, I guess you're kind of right there. Oh man, D-Shift players in shambles.
I'm a Rune main, by the way, so
yeah.
I am Rune strongest soldier, and I am going to tell you that.
So what we're thinking, like right here, or should we go higher up?
Whoa, go a little bit lower on that.
A little lower, like right here.
There we go.
Okay,
I like it. This is a very good system.
Yeah. All right. So this is like more of like a mid-range, maybe control blood or abyss. We didn't talk about this. I put it here and forgot about it. We're throwing this bad boy. like down here.
We got to use the middle part. No, it's not. No, that's definitely better than aggro. I actually have a hand. I get the necro charge 10 off like quite often.
What, you think it's about the same? I feel okay. I guess yeah.
I have all the benefit of the aggro deck because I still play the 1-drops that are good. But then the difference is I play more draw cards and I have like actual removal, so I don't instantly die to a Shenlong like existing on the board. And then on turn 7, usually you can have necro charge 10, which the other deck cannot do. And you have a couple removal spells, so it's like if that's like mid range, like true mid range, I think it's a little bit better than like normal.
Well, like around here. Do you think it's
Probably.
harder to play than this stuff over here?
Well, yeah, it's a mid range deck, so it's naturally harder than shoving 12 1-drops in your deck and slamming Goblin double
True.
1-drop turn 2. Turn 3, you're already down to 2 cards in hand.
Then wait, should we be moving? Should we be moving this up too then? Mid-range sword, or is it just AFK easy?
Wait, what? Oh, mid range sword.
Yeah, I have it on like more of the easy range.
The difference between it and like the Abysscraft is you're trying to like fuel your necro charge and usually have more options,
there's
like
a little
killing
bit
your
more
own
balancing
sword.
stuff. Okay, yeah.
In sword, I literally look at my hand and I go, what is
What's
the
on
missing
curve? Yeah.
what is the missing curve piece? And then I play down my search card and I go, I'm getting the missing curve piece. If I have 4, 5, 6, then I go grab the 7. If I have 5, 6, 7, I go grab the 4. It's like
Yeah, you're right.
there's literally no thought. It's I put down a card a turn.
So we're thinking like what, right here?
Yeah, that seems fine.
Okay, cool. All right. This is the deck that black pilled me. So I feel like it's like this.
Hell yeah.
Like,
you play Lucifer? I don't even play Lucifer. I just stare at my opponent and go, if you keep killing my tigers, you're decking out.
oh,
One of us is.
Okay, so part of the reason I bought into Lucifer more is because the time limit rounds, and some people just play hella slow, and sometimes I need to be like, I have 2 ward tigers up already, and I cracked another amulet and have a 3rd tiger. I can just like slam Lucifer behind it, heal 4, or if need be, I can just evo it then. Sit there, heal 4, and then there's like wards in front of it that protect it, and then I go like, if you don't remove Lucifer this turn and you pass turn to me and Lucifer is still alive, this represents 12 face damage immediately, on top of like having the tigers.
I will say it's not even that, but there was like one time I fought against Abyss, and my deck's a little bit slower because I'm playing things like death sentences to go really long. Like, right, I want to go really long against people.
Yeah.
And this guy like Phantom Howled on 3, like Necromancered on 4, and I'm sitting there at like 8 health on turn 4. I'm like, oh, whoa, this I seem to be dying pretty fast.
Yeah.
But usually don't get that bursted down, right? Against a lot of other decks, you have good matchups, but sometimes you do get bursted down. So
yeah, the big thing about, I think, Havencraft too, at least the control with Holy Sentinel and all the tigers, is that you do have some wiggle room in like the earlier drops on like what you want to play, and if you want to play more of like stopping the aggressive game plan versus like playing for late game removal, I feel like, or maybe it doesn't really matter. Like, I think you can just swap around different pieces early game to change up for what meta you're in, I guess. Do you think that's right?
Like, yeah, you can definitely swap around a lot. Because
like my version, I don't play Bellringer Angel because locally I've seen a lot of people play a lot of Haven players here. There's a good chunk of Haven players in my area, and almost all of them play Bellringer. And instead of playing Bellringer, they're also on Nun. I just play Nun as my big ward in the early game, but I play the banish removal, the 2-drop. What is it called? Like
Lock and Scripture.
Yeah, because it hurts Dragon. It hurts people who play Bellringer, which is almost everyone. Sometimes people play Bellringer out expecting to get the draw, and they lose the draw, and then you just like remove their Bellringer and be able to swing face with like one of your tigers or something, right?
I want to revisit my list because I'm on the one that we uploaded still.
Oh yeah, I think you were kind of on the right path. I think the biggest difference is that you've played like a one of the Guardian Nun, where I think Guardian Nun is actually insane value overall after playing it and playing into it.
I've noticed.
Yeah.
I've noticed.
Yeah, and then what is it? Shout out to I think his name's Prescia. I think dude, if I said your name wrong, I'm sorry. He was like the one that put me on it immediately because I played against him, and then we talked about it after I lost that match when I was playing Aggro Sword, and we talked a lot about like how annoying that one card was for me, and I was like, yeah, I very much undervalued this card. Also, the fact that the Evo form heals you too is pretty big because it helps you elongate the game, and you're able to trade more health early on against aggro instead of just like, you know, like it basically gives you like extra turns essentially, especially against aggro, or more time, which is more than enough. I've really liked the card a lot, and its stat line is pretty good. 4/5 after Evo is pretty good for a 3-drop. Well, I mean, technically a 4-drop at that point, but yeah, a lot of times I feel like I'm going second. Well. Yeah, it heals, which is big, and I think a lot of times too, I just choose to go second in a lot of matchups because the extra card and the Evo points is pretty big for like turn 3. But yeah, I think the biggest struggle for like this deck being very hard to play is that you do have to think about multiple turns ahead, not just like one ahead all the time, because you have to decide what amulets you're going to crack before you start dropping Holy Sentinel, and then you have to figure out a turn where threading in Holy Sentinel like as early as possible is really important, but you also have to make sure you're just not going to die.
Here's a question for you, Kit. Have you ever done this? Because I have. Have you ever gone to 8 cards in hand on 3 so you could Cruel Priestess on 4?
I tried to once.
I've done that.
But I couldn't figure out how to get another card to my hand.
Dang.
Yeah, that was the big issue. I think if I opened up like double, not Pinion's Prayer. What's the draw card?
That one, yeah.
Yeah. I haven't opened up double that before yet. I have done like Cruel Cudgel, or what is not as Cudgel? What's the one that searches?
Prison Priestess.
Yeah, I've done like Prison Priestess search for the draw thing before for my early hand, because like I had like good pieces already in my hand, and I didn't really feel like I needed to search Holy Sentinel out, or I already had Holy Sentinel in my hand, and like started cracking them as early as possible, especially when I know it's a matchup that's going to go long, because I want as much gas as possible. And I did try, like in one matchup, I think it was in the Dragon matchup, I tried to get to 8 cards so I could discard it out of my hand, but I just couldn't figure out a way to do it before it, like, it's already turn 5, I might as well drop it, you know?
Yeah.
But that is a line of play like worth like looking at, I guess, which is interesting, because I did, like, I was aware of it, but I didn't think it was like very possible all the time. But in that case, it was like, I was like, oh wait, I'm like actually almost able to do this. Like maybe I should consider this more often. And then yeah, like I said too, like you got to think multiple turns ahead a lot of times too, and like what amulets you're cracking for the value. Sometimes you're just like forced into like not cracking in certain times because you know you need, even if you could get good value immediately, sometimes you just got to trade life to be able to drop Holy Sentinel and then crack from there, right? It's some very interesting play point management with the list. I feel like that's so like the biggest
double Holy Sentinel.
Yeah,
then you can't think because you don't have spots on your board.
Yeah, you can no longer play the game because the game plays itself. You crack one amulet and your board's full, and you're like, damn, what do I do now? But yeah, I'm kind of getting like what is it, Haven pilled essentially. I think Haven might be the best deck in the format. But like the fact that Sword and Dragon are so much easier to play, and it's almost like the same exact value as Haven.
Cheaper too.
Yeah, and it's cheaper. I think Dragon's the most expensive. Dragon, I think, is the most expensive though, depending on what pieces you're picking up. Because there's like
Lucifer's and Haven, it's definitely more expensive.
Yeah.
Because Lucifer's still the most expensive card, despite like not being good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think Lucifer's good. It's just differently.
He's not his price tag, and he's not played in as many decks as you think.
Yeah. I feel like he's mostly like randomly like a 1 or 2 of in almost every deck can get away with it. I lean heavily on the Lucifer win condition for Haven if my Tigers don't get me there, or if I need to like speed up the game because there were some games where I was very like worried about time, especially like some locals. They'll like, before everyone's ready, they'll just start the timer and we're like still shuffling up and getting to our tables. But I think time is a big factor too with Haven. Games tend to go long, so there's, especially in the Dragon matchup or even in the Mirror matchup, you're going to go to time. So you need to be able to make good decisions and fast. Kind of like if you've ever played Control in Magic or Control, I guess Control in any game is the same way, right? Like you need to be very aware of your lines and be able to make the decisions fairly quickly to save the time.
I was gonna say something that's like I've noticed, at least within my locals. If I'm playing against like some of the newer players, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our games, it would be like an 8-turn game. It takes up like 15, 20 minutes of the clock. If I'm against Ellis, I had a 10-turn game of Haven versus Sword, where I think it might have been 11 turns, and I think we were done in about 10 minutes. So it does depend on who you're playing.
Oh,
It definitely
absolutely.
does.
If both players know what they're doing and they're both very quick and like understand their deck completely, like your games can still finish fairly quickly, even if they go long. Like I think my Dragon matchup on Sunday, I think we finished in about 15 20-ish minutes or so, and the rounds were 25 minutes for the shop qualifier. It did go a little longer, obviously, because I'm just sitting there like summon tigers, and then he's like clear board, summon tigers, clear board, until eventually he ran out of gas and couldn't handle like all the tigers. But yeah. Okay. Last thing, I guess we have the Flaming Glass mystery deck.
That's my problem.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the worst part about Flaming Glass. It's like I feel like it's around like this area. It's fairly easy to play, I think, because it takes up so many slots of the deck, right? So like at any point,
it does take up a lot of slots.
yeah. So like the deck almost makes all the decisions for you, I think, and you just kind of build around it. But I feel like it bounces like anywhere like this, depending on what build you're in and what matchups you're hitting. I do think I agree
Let's
with
only
Dean.
talk about Dragon and
Yeah.
Haven then, because I think those are the only two good shells.
Yeah, I think Dragon Flaming Glass is like a real threat. I think it's fairly easy to play, and like the best thing about like playing it in Dragon is like you get the smoke screen of everyone thinking you're playing Dragon, and then you just like hit them with the Flaming Glass, and it like is such a huge tempo swing because it blows up the board, and the fact that you get the ramp means you get to play. If you only ramp once, you get to play Flaming Glass out of hand on your turn 6, while your opponent is like 2 mana behind you, especially if you've gone first, right? So they have even less options while you get to blow up their entire board, hit 7. That's what I feel like.
You just made an argument that I don't agree with, just because I've at least what I felt with the deck. You
What do you
said
mean?
if you go first and you ramp and you have Flaming Glass on set, I feel like that's a lot of pieces. I feel like going second in that because you do need the one extra card. Maybe that's wrong.
Well, I don't. My list I was playing like 2 paths and wait and like a lot of cards to like draw. So like a lot of games that let me do that were like turn 2 ramp, turn 3 path, and then like play something and then into like Flaming Glass, really, because I've drawn so many cards. Or like
what a sack,
dude. Yeah. Or like you shit-long.
I played 2 path and like 3 oracles, and I open the oracle every game alongside the path. That's all you need.
It sounds like a skill diff to me.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, a lot of games go like that. And even games where I don't get to play Flaming Glass, like on like my turn 6 or whatever, like the deck still felt very solid because the dragon pieces are all very good. Like
it's just, I think that Flaming Glass is just like unbelievably good into literally every deck. That like the second you put it down, all you need is a shell that's prepared to go long and has like hand fixing. So that's why I think that Haven is like the other contender, especially since we heard about Toronto supposedly got terrorized by a Flaming Glass Haven.
Yeah, I mean, I had a local here too that played Flaming Glass Haven, and I was playing Dragon Flaming Glass, which was really funny. We were both basically top decking to kill each other at one point. We're like, did you draw a storm? No, okay, my turn. Did you draw a storm? No, your turn. Did you draw a storm? Like that was basically what was going on with our game.
It's nice that also like that like glass early, like even if it's just a hand fix, can like sometimes eat a removal spell.
Yeah, it has like a fake ward on it, and like if players don't respect it, like we said before, they can just like randomly lose the game immediately. I did
Yeah,
have some players who like I'll have double glass in hand, and maybe I don't even have flame, but I'll slam the extra glass on the board and be like, here you go, like there's a chance I could draw it or already have it in my hand. You know, you make the decision if you want to respect this or not. And sometimes people don't respect it, and I go, okay, thanks, and then I play the flame and just get flaming glass on turn 4 and like look at my opponent and go, thanks for the free win, essentially. Because like at that point you blow up their board, you do 7 face damage, even if they're able to answer it next turn, like they like wasted, yeah, like they wasted execution or something, and then you're like, you did nothing again, okay, my turn, here's like Forte 5 face or something, right? If you're playing dragon. So like it's a very powerful card in those instances, and I think we both agree here, right? So Dragon and Haven are probably the best shells. I've seen other people tinkering around with other shells. I haven't seen anything else that's been as impressive as those two yet. Maybe we don't have the secret sauce yet. But yeah, I do think the deck is probably like somewhere around. I don't want to say it's the best deck because I think there are fell cases where it can get really rough sometimes. Maybe it's like down like right here. What do you think?
Really? I guess there are like some awkward hands.
I've had hands where like I mull and I draw 2 flames, and then like 2 turns later I have 3 flames in my hand. I'm like, this is the worst card to have in my hand like ever. Like I'm just like playing it out on turn 3 because like I have nothing else to do, right?
At the same time, I don't know. I've played Sword and had like a flame of glass at the board. I'm just like, there's nothing that I can draw. There's nothing in my deck. There's nothing. This game is over. I have lost.
Yeah. I think the
Laurel
big
Fencer plus 1 mana removal spell, I guess, is 7. Like,
I think one of the issues too is that like you do need both pieces if you're going to cheat this out, and like this is only gets really good when both pieces are in the cemetery, right? So those are like the 2 instances of like fail case issues, because I've had games where I've played this deck and literally it's like all the glasses were in the like the bottom like 10 to 15 cards of my deck or some shit, or yeah, not counting the 4 mole or whatever, like the like bottom 10 cards of my deck, and like it takes me forever to get there. One issue I think too, I don't think it matters as much, but one issue in Haven is when you do play this out for 7 play points in one turn, you do not keep up 4 mana for like execution or something like that. It matters a lot less because I think immediately Flaming Glass has like the target, like it needs to be removed now, otherwise it loses the game. But I mean, that's something I guess to consider. But yeah, do you think it should be higher, or do you think I think this is?
no, I think it's about right. I think the bad games are like, I'm trying to like parse in my head what you said. You're like, well, I have this game where it's like really bad. All the glass are on the bottom.
I like in those games, honestly, I literally play it like I'm playing normal Dragon almost. Like, and I've only done this in Dragon, so yeah. Go ahead.
The problem I'm having is like we don't have best 2 out of 3, so I'm like, how much do I knock like slight consistency issues when we have best of 1, and this deck when it happens is so disgusting? Do you knock it for having like implosions, or do you just say like, oh, it should only implode like 1 in 7 games or something? And it's so out of nowhere that like, honestly, like, do you think that this deck would be worse if it was best 2 out of 3? I think it would.
Yeah, because sometimes the surprise factor is a big thing for the deck, and like if you only get 1 game, like it makes the surprise factor even better, you know. Maybe if we go to 2 out of 3, the deck gets worse. Consistency issues plus like the surprise factor's gone after game 1, which means your opponent now knows what to be looking out for, and like, oh, I gotta respect this, or like I need to always hold up some removal for this. Like even when Flaming Glass hits the board and still deals 7 to everything, clears the board. I think that's still pretty good. Yeah, definitely 2 out of 3 would make the deck, I think, worse.
I think like where it's at, it's fine. I don't think that the consistency should hurt you.
Yeah. Damn. All right, now I'm looking at this. Do we really think D-Shift's not the worst deck? You think D-Shift is that bad?
Have you actually sleeved it?
To be fair, I
Actually
haven't.
sleeved it.
I
Wow.
have it.
Maybe you should start using your playset.
Oh man. Well,
Maybe you should
I
start.
lost once to D-Shift. All right, that's enough for me to be like Dex. Okay.
I don't know how your opponent that went 1-4 that day felt when he got to go off the one game.
Listen, he actually won the entire event. But to
Did
be
he?
fair, yeah. Well, I think I bricked against him, and then he opened Nutty, and then I think his opponent also bricked the next round. His opponent bricked, and he had the gas again. I guess yeah. D-Shift variance is so wild too, depending on if you open Penguin or not. I guess I can agree it's like pretty low on like how powerful it is.
I think the spell chain deck No, I recorded it, but then I deleted it because I'm going to be honest with you guys. I have some problems where I got this mic. I got this mic here. This mic sounds good, but the mic on my camera does not.
Oh, you put it on your camera mic.
Yeah. So I used this mic. I was like, let's test it out, and it doesn't sound that bad. But it's got a little bit of zzz, the sound. So we didn't get the deck profile out, but it's on the video where we did Haven versus Rune with the shaky cam. Very shaky cam. It adds it's a cinematic experience.
Strong. You did it with a hand cam?
No. It the camera didn't have a mount yet.
Oh, that one. Okay.
And so the camera was on the table, and so touching the table would cause the table to shake, and it's like a Hollywood movie. The screen moves a lot. Dynamic.
Okay. Dynamic. Okay. All right. I guess we'll just do this really quick for everyone right at the end. Let's just move sorry for the flame flash. I'm gonna move these around. What we think? Where are we moving? Aggro Abyss, like 1.5.
I think 1.5 is fine.
All right. I think we move Haven up, right?
Yeah.
I feel like
D-Shift down.
I think this goes up for sure. D-Shift.
Otohime up.
Otohime up. This is look good. I think this might be
Roach up.
You think Roach up here?
Yeah, it's probably fine.
Yeah. Oh man, I almost feel like yeah, whatever. D-Shift, I'm kind of convinced D-Shift is like you either open the nuts or you don't get to play the game, sorta. But maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, I think so. I think this is kind of where we ended up. So this is kind of what the tiers kind of spread out look to be, I think. Sorry for the flash again. Oh no, it came through. Here's how we rate on it, how easy and strong it is. So you guys can have a visual idea of that. I think
visual idea.
Listen, I don't know. Like, I think this is I don't know. Well, I guess you know what? This video is going really long. If you've made it this far, let us know. Do you like this version of a tier list, or do you just want us to like do tiers like this? All right, so we know for our next video.
Like watch test for the tier list.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that kind of wraps up our thoughts completely. Do you have anything else to say before we head out, Dean?
No, that's it. Thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, subscribe.
Yeah. What was that? Ring the bell thing or whatever. I think other YouTubers say that stuff.
Notification bell.
Yep. And all that. So we'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Later.